To use as reinforcers. Items or activity which are highly preferred by who? The student. Thank you very much. Can't tell you how many teachers or parents think, well, I give them M&Ms. I'm like, well, have you actually stopped to realize whether, or think about whether he wants M&Ms? You know, or like a teacher that uses the reinforcer of computer time. Well, some kids want computer time, but some kids don't want computer time. You have to use what they want to gain. Okay, so always doing your reinforcer assessments, trying out new things, figuring out what they like. If they have an obsession, can you use it in some appropriate way to reinforce them with what they're doing? I mean, and sometimes I have kids where initially, until we work with them for a while and they've gotten going in this style of teaching, we can't use their obsession because they're so obsessed that just taking it away to do the next worked activity causes an hour tantrum. So we have to first get into having session management and instructional control, and then we can start to bring back using that train that they love so much or whatever. So always preferred by the student. So you do ongoing assessment surveys. It's a way of always finding out. Some of our kids change so quickly week to week what they like. Some of them are so hard to find what they like, because the minute you start doing instruction, nothing's powerful enough to get them to do what you want them to do. And sometimes they have like 2 things that they like, you know, and you're like, oh, how do we use those? And they never change, and you don't get, it's hard to introduce new things. So it's difficult many times. But doing reinforcer assessment is a way of, it's actually a teaching moment where you introduce new things, constantly trying to introduce those age-appropriate types of games or toys, showing them how they can be fun, playing with them, constantly introducing them to them, because hopefully they start to gain an interest in those types of things and they can become reinforced. You never allow them to have them otherwise, never. And there's negotiation oftentimes between home and school. Okay, we're going to use this one at school, so please don't use this at home. At home, okay, we're using this at home because we're working on toilet training now. Please don't use it at school, or school only uses it for toilet training too. Those types of things, because that is increasing your strength of that reinforcer. It makes it that much more powerful. They only get it when they comply or they do correct response. So keep those things constantly in your mind. What are those things that they never have access to other than during those times of instruction or working on things? Okay, so the other side of reinforcement is pairing. This is looking at yourself. How are you a reinforcer for the child? Now, I'm not talking in terms of you want the child to like you and he, you know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen paraeducators or parents or teachers say, oh, but I know you like me. Don't you want to do this for me? I know. It doesn't have to do with that. This pairing is that you are creating yourself as somebody that the child wants to be with because they get things that they want and they're learning, and you are keeping them successful, they're making progress, and you are associated with all of that positive and that success. So you're thinking about yourself in that sort of aspect. So why do you pair? You want to establish rapport. A lot of kids, private schools get a lot of kids that have been unsuccessful in a public school. Public schools get kids who have come from in-home programs or from, you know, preschool programs. Parents have kids that are unsuccessful at school. We all experience kids that have had little success before with some sort of teaching or behavior thing. So what you're trying to do is not have that happen. You want to establish rapport so that you are able to maintain that teaching relationship with that child. It's about establishing trust. I'm consistent, I do what I say, and I expect you to be a part of that. And you build this trust with each other so that he continues to learn. When I do the thing that you ask me to do, I get this great thing that I want. And you constantly do that with them. and you establish yourself as a teacher, as a giver of good things, makes the student want to be with you. Learning can be fun. A lot of people forget that we still want that to happen with our kids with disabilities. Learning still should be fun. It's so much more difficult, and most of our kids don't look at it as fun. You know, our kids with learning disabilities, all those kids, they hate school, they hate learning. If they're bad at reading, they don't want anything to do with reading because they feel like a failure. Well, our kids on the spectrum have some sense of that. They can't express it like our typical kids can, but they still, if they feel like a failure, they don't want to be around you. They don't want to be in that environment. So really creating it, making it fun is still something that's a goal for us. So how do you pair? All right, so you use things that they like currently, and you play with them. I love playing. So this was always a fun part of teaching. I am really a big kid when it comes down to playing with kids, and I always have so much fun inventing new, fun games to do together. A lot of our kids on the spectrum like physical games, physical things. That proprioception, sensory thing issues that they have, they love all of that stuff that you kind of do with squeezing and pushing on each other or running around or whatever. And so I was often really good at that because I love that myself. So you're just looking at things that they like to do, and you want to use those things. You want to become associated with those things. You don't want to be only associated with negative events. Now, we're all, as teachers, going to have negative things that happen between us and our kids that we're teaching, but you want to avoid that constant aspect of negative things happen with you when I'm with you. So a lot of times when you are transitioning from highly preferred to non-preferred, you do something fun kind of as that transition. This is also true for people that are itinerant, our speech and language, our OT, AP, those people that come and take the child away from their current environment, and if they're currently engaged in something they really like, and you always show up at that time, they see you as like the taker away of fun. I had one kid that always, speech and language person, wonderful, teacher, wonderful. But she always came during one time that something was happening in the classroom that the child loved. I think it was music or whatever. He could hear her walking down the hallway. He knew her cadence to know that it was her coming, and he would start getting upset just because he knew she was going to take him away. So we had her come. We changed the amount of time that she had to be with him. She came early. She became part of that activity so that she was part of the fun. And then we set a timer, and we said, okay, in 2 minutes, you're going to be leaving with so-and-so. And then they left together, and they walked on down the hall, kind of continuing the activity themselves. So it just changes that whole negative aspect, changed her whole teaching time with him, because it started off on this positive note. So you want to be creative in thinking about that and how you are associating yourself with the child. You don't always want to be the person that's taking away reinforcers, too. Sometimes kids have, things that they're always trying to get to. Sometimes they get it when they shouldn't. You don't want to just be always the person that's coming and grabbing it away, and you're not supposed to have that. So you want to teach what I call like a give it back technique. I work with kids who I know ahead of time are going to have this difficulty because they're always like, they think you're always going to try to take away that thing that they want, because people usually have. So we play a game of give it to me, I give it back, I give it to me, I give it back, and then I hold it for longer, and then I give it back, and I hold it for longer, and then I give it back. So they have this, they build this trust with you that you may have it for a little while, but I am going to get it back. And so they build that, and they just play that and constantly do that with things, and sometimes if they can still see it, they're okay. All right.